Welcome to AZ Solutions XLookup function. In order to explain the XLookup function efficiently, I'm going to show you the Vlookup function. That way you can see the limitations of the Vlookup and what the XLookup has done in its place. So a Vlookup is a glorified copy and paste tool. It's a way of saying, I want to look for some information in a master list and then return what's happening from a particular column. So it starts with equals Vlookup. Let's look for the product number, comma. A comma is important so that you tell me that, yes, I've given you this information, great, what's next? The table array is where are you getting your information from? This is where you're getting your information from here. Noticing I've selected the first column, which has the product number, our lookup value. Also take note that I have vMaster, which is a representation of this block of data. So, comma. And the information that we want to return is located in the second column starting from that master list or starting from that specific set of data. So it's column number 2, comma, and we want to find an exact match to the lookup value that we gave here. So we're going to put in the word false or a 0, which will give you the same thing. Both are accepted terminology. What I also want to show you is the master or the range name that I've created here, how that was done. So if I go to the name manager, I can see the name that was used here. Now I'm going to delete it. And if you delete any range names, you'll see that, of course, it will cause an error as it doesn't understand that name that you had there. So I'm going to reinstate it now by creating a range name. So from this master list, I'm going to select this block of data and call it vMaster. Notice that when I name it, there is no space in the naming, and it also must start with a letter. I'm going to hit enter, and that is very important. So now the name has been reinstated. Another point here is the column reference number. If I wanted to find not the description, but let's say the cost, then I would need to change the Vlookup, the column reference, and ask it to return the information in column number 3 instead. Now, as an end user, we don't want them coming here and tweaking and modifying or playing with our function. So in place of this number 2, we're going to add the match function. Now, the match function is going to go and look for this description in the master list sheet in this range of cells, which I've called it master list headings. Then I want to make sure that it finds an exact match to that text that I asked it for. The match function is going to tell me how many times to jump across. The answer will be 3 if I have cost, and the answer will be 2 if I say description. So I'm going to now take this match function, copy it, and insert it in place of the number 2. So now if my end user comes in here and changes the description to cost, then the function will automatically make that update and change. Another thing that may happen is that the product code that is typed in here is not found in the list, and therefore it will return NA. Now, NA can look messy and not pretty to look at, and it can confuse people. So instead of NA, it would be nicer if it came back and had a comment. So we're going to add the if error function, which says if there is an error in this particular instruction, formula, function, calculation, then return a comment such as check code, for example. If there is no error, then it will simply perform its task. Let's take a look at the XLookup that now replaces the need to insert a nested if error function. So if I add XLookup, ask it to look for this value in this column, it will memorize what column position that number was. So if I asked it to find 1004, it knows to jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and that's where that's located. And then you need to choose the return array. Which column or multiple columns can I return some information from? Here is where I can add the, if there is an error, if it cannot find what you want, what do you want me to say? And I will say check code. I will ask it to find an exact match to that lookup value. You'll notice here I only put the function in description, yet it flowed on into cost and into code. And as it does into cost and code, you'll notice it's grayed out. So it's like doing a protection. I'll hit delete and it doesn't let me delete the other two unless I delete the original. So it's like protection without having to go through that process of protection. Let's take a look at finding the nearest lowest match. Let's say the value of 27 isn't found in the list. I don't want it to come up with an error, but I do want it to find the nearest lowest. So in this case here, I can add a comment and ask it to find the nearest smallest. If I need it to find, let's say it was a different scenario, different circumstance, I needed to find the nearest highest, I could change that last entry there to ask it to find for the next or the nearest largest number. This was not possible before with the Vlookup. You had to use index and match function in order to accomplish that. Let's take a look at nested XLookup function. Let's say that what I needed to find is rehearsal room and winter. So in this instance, XLookup, look for this piece of information within this range. Now, if it was winter and winter was never going to be changed, it's always going to be that return, then in the return array, I would simply select winter. I'm asking it to find exactly that booking name. So it's returned winter, but what if I wanted to change winter to spring? Then I'll need to add in the return option based on finding spring in this range, and the return would be all of this. So I would add an XLookup here to ask it to look for spring in this range, returning data from any of those columns. So now it has found spring for that room. If I was to change it to winter, it will now find for winter. Let's take a look at the XLookup, but let's say the scenario is that I only know the first name. I don't know the surname. I'm not 100% sure. So I can use the asterisk as my wildcard character, meaning I can find any number of characters after this point. So I could say equals XLookup, go and look for this piece of information in this range based on this returning from here. If you can't find it, I want you to say check spelling. I want you to find an exact, not an exact match, using the wild character now because we're using the asterisk. So if I was to say I'm looking for Carol, but I can't remember her surname, let's put an asterisk there, and it will look for Carol and then any number of characters after that point. Sometimes you might find that there are the name appears several times, and what you want to find, if you want to find the first one, then you do it the way we've done it. If you want to find the last occurrence of it, you need to tell it to as if you're sorting in the opposite direction. So what you'll need to do to the end of this is add a -1 so that it can search, but starting from the last one to the first. Now it has found, if I say Annalear, it will find the last occurrence of Annalear. You will find in this exercise completed sessions that you can explore. Thank you for watching AZ Solutions, and we do offer virtual training as well as face-to-face training in Sydney, New South Wales.